So far in this series, I have explained systems that a player might encounter as they level through the starting area before they get to a node. To start part 2, our player is still in the starting area, and we will see a few more mechanics that I think players will be introduced to before leaving the starting area. To start out, when leveling, players will receive skill points. This is a fairly standard system seen in most MMOs. The main thing different with this system is players can choose to go tall or wide with their skill point selections, meaning they can choose to get a lot of skills or they can choose to have less skills but put more points into them and level them up. In the starting area, it is also possible that players will get their first exposure to the Artisan system. It could be introduced via a quest that has the player buy their first gathering tool. Ashes has 3 Artisan classes. These are gathering, processing, and crafting. Within each Artisan class, there are professions. Players can only master professions from one Artisan class. Players can achieve a low level of proficiency in other Artisan classes besides their mastered Artisan class, perhaps as high as tier 3 or 4 proficiency. So, everyone will be able to gather and process the low-level materials and craft the low-tier items. Later on, presumably, is when players will need to make a choice as to what Artisan class they want to become a master. Within that Master Artisan class, players will also be limited to the amount of professions they can master. The most recent quote is 2 professions within one Artisan class can be mastered, but that number is subject to testing and feedback. For the average player, just mastering one profession will likely be a monumental task. That is the theme of Ashes of Creation. Achieving mastery in anything will be a significant achievement. It is also very important to know how important crafting is in this MMO. In a lot of MMOs, crafting is almost completely irrelevant. In this MMO, it is of the utmost importance as crafters will make the best gear in the game. There is a small chance of finished items dropping from bosses, but the more reliable way of acquiring gear will be from crafters. Eventually players will leave the starting area. Likely they will be led to some nearby nodes via quests, similar to what we saw in Alpha 1. We will get into the nodes, but at this point, my assumption is that this is when a player could potentially be exposed to death and PvP. My guess is there might be some sort of PvP protection in place, either via a timer or just within the starting area, to allow players time to get acclimated to the systems in this game a bit. But by the time a player leaves the starting area, my guess is all bets are off. This is not a confirmed direction they have planned, but I think we could easily see that as it is a staple in PvP MMOs these days. Before describing the PvP flagging system, one feature Ashes has that is not common is that enemy players will not display a health bar. Instead, the nameplate will deteriorate to give a basic idea of what the player's remaining health is, but you will not see an actual number or percentage. On the nameplate, you will have the standard character name and guild name. You will also see an icon for the character's class. Hovering over the nameplate will show the level, class name, and archetype combo for the player. A buff icon will show the character's gear and level, and the PvP flagging state will be known based on the color of the player's name. Purple is the combatant state, green is the non-combatant state, and red is the corrupted state. The PvP in Ashes of Creation is always on, even in cities, and there are only a few safe zones. The only safe zones are player housing and player-run stalls within nodes. Other than that, you can be attacked at any time. This is not as scary as it sounds, as the corruption system will prevent a lot of senseless killing, which we will get into shortly. Like in most MMOs, I think the starting area will likely be pretty easy, so death is not likely until leaving the starting area. But once the training wheels come off, players will learn that the world of Vera is very dangerous, and death is a very real possibility, whether from the PvE environment or from the players. On top of the difficulty, there is a penalty for death. There is a standard death penalty that is given to those that are flagged in the PvP system as a non-combatant. The different PvP flagging states will change this penalty. The death penalty is the same for both PvE and PvP. However, objective-based PvP events do not have most of these penalties. Caravan attackers do take a durability loss upon death, however. But the standard death penalty for non-combatants in open-world non-objective PvP and in PvE is as follows. Experience debt. Notice I did not say you lose experience because you do not lose experience when you die. But you do get experience debt, which you must burn off before your character will start to earn experience again. Repeated deaths will cause this experience debt to stack up to 2 to 3% of your total XP at max level. Skill and stat dampening, lower health and mana, lower gear proficiency, reduction in drop rates from monsters, durability loss on your gear, which includes both a gold cost and a material cost. Dropping a percentage of your gatherables and processed goods, which includes the certificates from mob kills and certificates players will later get from caravan PvP. If the player is using a mule that also has an inventory, that can also be killed, and it will also drop the same percentage of lootable goods and materials as the player. The standard death penalty does not include the dropping of finished items, whether worn or not. We do not know the exact numbers behind these penalties. We don't know what percentage of goods a player drops, for instance. We don't know how repeated deaths before your previous death penalty will stack, other than a basic idea of how experience debt will stack. But we do know this standard penalty is then used as the basis for the other two PvP flag states, which are the combatant state and the corrupted state. A combatant will take a 50% reduction on this penalty, and a corrupted will take a 4x increase of this penalty. In addition to the 4x increase in the death penalty, corrupted also have a chance to drop items, and this drop chance increases as players become more corrupted. Eventually, a corrupted player will become so weak as these penalties increase with their corrupted score that they will become completely ineffective in combat. So again, there are 3 flagging states a player can be in: non-combatant, green, combatant, purple, and corrupted, red. The corruption system seems complex, but I will try to break it down in simple terms. Basically, everyone starts as a non-combatant. If I am gathering out in the world and someone runs up to me and chooses to attack me, they will become a combatant. If I do not fight back and they kill me, they become corrupted. If I do fight back, I also get flagged as a combatant, and if I proceed to kill my attacker, which of course I will, then I will not become corrupted. Why would I want to fight back if it means my attacker would not then become corrupted if he kills me? Well, because of the 50% reduction of the death penalty. If I am out gathering very valuable materials, I am encouraged to fight back, because if I do, I drop less of those valuable materials. And if I kill the aggressor that attacks me, I only become a combatant, not corrupted, and I can loot his corpse, which would have the combatant death penalty applied. So in a lot of cases, fighting back will be rewarded. So those that enjoy open world PvP will have a lot of fun with this system, and those that do not, I think it will also be safe in most cases. If you do not fight back, most players are not going to want to deal with corruption. Rarely will corruption be worth it, except in a few rare cases. It is also very worth noting that corruption stacks much faster if a player kills a much lower level player. One case where corruption might be worth it is if they think you have very valuable materials you could drop. Or it could be you are farming a very valuable material that they also have a high enough gathering and can farm too, but they want it uncontested, so they murder you. Another is if you're fighting a rare spawn or boss that has a long respawn timer that they really want to tag for their group instead of your group getting the tag. But other than some rare scenarios, in most cases, going corrupt will not be worth it. And on top of the penalties, there is also a bounty hunter system that unlocks when a military node hits stage 4. This will allow residents of that node to unlock the ability to see corrupted on their map and hunt them down for rewards. Stage 4 nodes will take many days to develop, so this system will not be available on day 1, and we will get into nodes a lot more once we get to our first node. But suffice it to say, the corruption system should prevent Ashes from becoming a gank box. But for those that enjoy open world PvP, that will still be present. There will be a lot of poking done by the more aggressive players to determine if a player is open to PvP. But when players do not fight back, I think you will see a lot of them not continue to fight. And even if players do not have a lot of open world PvP to contend with, there are a lot of other PvP modes that will be available that do not have the corruption system enabled. Caravans, the open seas, node and castle sieges, guild wars, and dynamic events that have small PvP battleground skirmishes are all ways a player can PvP without worrying about becoming corrupted. I have a video where I explained why I think Ashes of Creation can become the best open world PvP MMO we have ever seen. I really think this game has a great chance to do that. I am not nearly as certain that all the other features of this MMO will be the best we have ever seen, but I do have a lot of faith the open world PvP can be top notch. So we have explained a lot of the systems a player will probably have experienced before even getting to their first node. Now the player has finally gotten to their first node, and again, this is still day 1 of the server, and this is an average player. So likely the first node this player gets to will have already leveled from stage 0 to stage 1. This changes the node from just an empty spot to give it a small camp with NPCs. These NPCs will have a few quests and will offer the player a place to buy some basic items. And that is where I will leave us. In the next video, we will discuss the biggest feature of Ashes, the node system. Nodes tie into every system in the game in some way and are a key part of driving the story of your server. Ashes will have some form of story quests, but we don't know many details of how it will work, and it could be based on which nodes are leveled on your server. With that, I will end this video, and I will see you in part 3, where we will get into the nodes and all the systems that are integrated with the nodes. If you are liking this series so far, consider subscribing, and with that, I will see you in the next video.